Hi, welcome to Carousel. I'm your host, Jerry Laird. And as you know, or as I know, I have the feeling that everybody has a story, and everybody's got a novel in them. And on this particular Carousel ride, you're going to meet somebody with a fascinating story. And as a matter of fact, it's going to be in two parts. Although we'll try to complete enough this time so that you're not left as a cliffhanger. but this is my friend Jack Cohen. And Jack, what do you're calling your story?
A personal journey.
And you actually it's personal, but it's going to start with your parents, correct?
That's correct. It's going to start in 1898.
Right.
That's where my mother and father were born.
And where was that?
They were born in Liverpool, England. They were born on the same street. The name of the street was Leander Street. My father was born in number 2, and my mother was born in number 3.
Oh.
And they were lifetime sweethearts.
Oh, they could have written The Boy Next Door for her.
That's correct, yes.
Obviously, when did they come to this country?
Well, what happened is that they were brought up together and they went to school together. And in 1914, when the First World War came about.
Well, before, let's the name of your thing is A Personal Affair, and the very first shot we got is you've written this as a memoir, right?
That is correct.
And let's call for that first shot because it shows the book cover there. And the reason there is that you?
That's me.
That's a great shot.
My wife took that picture.
Where is that taken?
Actually, it's taken in California on China Beach.
Where's that?
In San Francisco.
Okay, because it looks like Big Sur, that area. It's not that far from Big Sur, but.
No,
the reason I wanted to show that is that's your cover, correct?
That's the cover of the book.
Then,
that's correct.
And when we get into the next shot is going to be one of your father, as I recall.
That's correct.
And I wanted to keep things in sequence, so go on. So let's go back to when and you can put the one of the father on anytime now. And when it comes on, well, here you are. Now that's. Jump ahead a little bit in your story and explain this, and then we'll go back and then talk about the earlier time. Like, well, he's in uniform and so on.
He's in uniform. He joined the Army in 1914 when the First World War started, and he was a bugler, and he was in many battles. And one of the major battles he was in was in Belgium. It was called the Passchendaele Ridge. It was the third major battle of Ypres in Belgium, and the British were going to attack the Germans, and he had the honor, so to speak, of blowing the bugle.
You had the bugle here,
of the charge that killed and wounded and missing men in action. 500,000 men.
Wow. That war was fantastic for the number of.
And the worst part about it is that it was very wet and rainy. It was a rainy season, and a lot of infantrymen drowned in the shell holes. And one of the things that bothered him his entire life was the dying sounds of the infantrymen drowning. And he actually got gassed in the war.
Yeah, so many people did in that war.
Yeah, he got mustard gas, and he died at 48.
Oh, what a shame.
Yeah, the mustard gas sort of destroyed him.
Let's go back to in growing up though. When did they come to this country?
He came.
Is there anything before that you wanted to mention about their lives in England?
Yeah, well, they were brought up together. They went to school together, and then he went off to war, and he came back, and then after the war, he was on a ship taking refugees to Argentina as an interpreter. And then he did that for a few years, and then he got on a ship called the Adriatic and came to New York. He sailed the ship for about a year, and in 1927 he jumped ship in New York.
Oh, okay.
And he was an illegal citizen. And he lived in New York until 1946 when we went back to England on a vacation.
Yeah. When did your mother...
I mean, 1937, I made a mistake.
Okay. But your mother, they were married here, weren't they?
Yes, what happened is that they had lost contact when my father came to New York, and my brother came looking for him, and she had a brother in New York City. And he told her that my father was working up in Boston in the hospital. So she went up to Boston to find him, and when she got to the hospital where he was supposed to be working, he had already left. And very despondent, she was coming back to New York because she couldn't find him. And walking through Boston Common, he was sitting on a park bench reading a newspaper. And 9 months later, I was born.
Okay, but they did get married.
I hope so. Yes, they did. Yes.
But that's interesting. But you think of there's so many things that are so totally inexplicable in this life. And the very fact that in Boston is not a little city, and it was not a little city then.
That's
the very
correct.
fact that they should encounter like that is you have to believe in some kind of a higher power.
Well, if you believe in fate, I guess that's
whatever it is.
Whatever it is, right.
Something saw to it that their paths crossed at the proper time.
Well, I think it was a marriage born in heaven.
That's right. And you proved it.
Yeah.
But then where did... were you born? Where were you born?
Well, then what happened? I was born 9 months later in New York City.
Okay.
And we lived in the Bronx,
Bronx,
New York, and I went to school there. And in just before the war broke out, in 1937, we went to England on a vacation, and the war broke out, and we got trapped there. So I spent the war years in England.
What did he do for employment and so on then?
Interesting. When he was here in New York, he was a tailor, and he opened the first dry cleaning establishment in New York City.
Oh, when was that?
He opened it up in 1932 or something like that.
Because it's interesting. Because I had an uncle at that time. My aunt was married several times, but about 1931 or two, she married a Greek, and they started a dry cleaning establishment in Omaha.
That's interesting.
Almost the same time. See, my memory. We sort of edit our memories, and all I know is I can remember things because of I went to grade school from such and such and
right.
such, and I know what grade school I was going to when they started the.
It's funny because I went to PS 28 in New York.
Well, you and you can identify. You have to have something like my children were born in the house they live in now, or they don't live in the house now, but we never moved to another city or anything like that. Where when I was a kid, we moved about 5 times because of the Depression. Before I was 8 or 9, so I can pinpoint an age. If I have a memory, I know that it had to be at that house, and we left it in, say, 1928, so that I was only 4 years old. So.
Well, it is interesting you should mention the Depression, because how he made a living in the Depression is he made shrouds for the Jewish dead, because when a Jewish person dies and he's Orthodox, all they have is a white shroud on in the coffin, and that's how he made his living during the Depression.
Wow. But you're okay. You're in Europe, and
so then because we went to England and the war broke out and we got trapped there. And
did your mother have to work too, or did she, or do you?
My mother was a seamstress. Yes.
Okay. Did she work with him?
No, they worked separate places.
Because I was to say that I could see where being a tailor or having a dry cleaning establishment, you could.
Yes, correct.
Be working together.
Well, at that time she was a housewife, bringing up my brother and I.
Okay.
And then, as I said, we went to England and got trapped by the war.
Right.
And I was brought up in Liverpool during the war, Second World War.
Well, but did you didn't? Were you living? Let's see. If you were living in Liverpool, didn't they send you out as a child? Didn't they?
No. What happened in Liverpool is that the war started, and there were several air raids, and there was one very, very large air raid called the 7 Days of Hell, where they bombed they bombed Liverpool for 7 nights, and our house got hit, and we were had no place to live, and people that houses got bombed. There was 17,000 people homeless.
Oh yeah.
And what happened is that they would during the nighttime or the evening, they would walk out to the outskirts of the city and wait the night out, and then they'd come back in the morning to go back to work. And they were called Trekkies, so it became Trekkies for a while. And then I went to live with my grandmother.
What did you do? Just sleep on the ground or what?
Yeah, slept anywhere you could. Churches, buildings, people took you in, under bushes.
Because by that time must have been winter, wouldn't it?
It was May. It was well, England's not that cold, but it was pretty cold. Actually, it was that winter was the coldest winter they'd had in a long time.
Oh.
So it just happened to be
of course,
a very
it had
bad
to be
winter. In fact, it even snowed that winter in England, which is unusual at that time.
Can you? Well, it's probably a stupid question, but can you recall the bombing actually? And so
yes, I could actually. In my book, I go through the sequence of what happened, and there is a saying that if you hear the bomb coming down, it's not for you.
Oh.
If you can't hear it, it's you, which is actually a godsend. I would.
Oh yeah, you don't know.
There's no terror involved. But we were in the house, and the air raid started, and we didn't have time to get to the main air raid shelter. My father had built a shelter under the stairs. The stairs are very sturdy and strong because the way they're built. And my father at that time was in Sefton Park as an anti-aircraft gunner, and trying to shoot the planes down that were bombing Liverpool, and we got a direct hit.
Yeah.
And blew away 3 houses.
But you weren't in it at that time.
I was under the stairs.
Oh, you were?
And the only thing I remember is the screech of the bomb coming down and a big bang.
Where was the rest of your family? Were they there too?
Under the stairs.
Because well, of course talk about your life is sort of has got all kinds of preferred fate, and seeing to it that the right things happen to you.
Well, what happened is, my mother dug us out, and as I said before, became Trekkies for a while, and then ended up at my grandmother's house. But I do remember getting dug out, and my mother said, "Go tell your father we're okay."
Oh, I see. So that's right. He was somewhere else.
Yeah, he was in Sefton Park, the aircraft gunner.
Yeah.
So I walked all the way to Sefton Park, which is about 3 miles, through the rubble and all the bricks laying around in the street. And I got to where he was, and at that time the air raid was over, and they were cleaning up the area, and I helped stack the shells for the next night.
Was Liverpool, now like my concept of England, London, is all through movies, and I was trained when I was in the Air Force. I was with 17s. I was going to go with 17s to do the daylight bombing, which would have been right outside of London, and as soon as that training was over, they transferred me to something else. So then I started training for something else. So I never did get to London. But my concept of it was they had those barrage balloons or whatever
correct.
they call it. Did they have those in Liverpool
yes,
as well?
As a matter of fact, they did. And there was a ship in the harbor loaded with ammunition. And one of the barrage balloons, they called it, caught fire. And the whole ship blew up and blew away a big dock area. It was the biggest bang they ever had during the war, apparently.
That's like,
but it made quite a mess of the docks down in Liverpool, and that was during the May Blitz. And I remember the sound of the big bang.
Oh, yeah, they could, because I heard in my career or my participation in World War II, I heard a lot of fire and so on. But I was always in a position where, almost always, in a position where there was really no danger. And the one time when we had a kamikaze raid, and they issued us rifles but no ammunition, And they didn't trust us.
Rifles, a lot of ammunition later on.
They didn't trust us. They're afraid we'd shoot our superiors.
Yeah.
So
but the interesting thing about the war, after the air raid, my mother decided that they would send my brother and I to Canada.
Okay.
For safekeeping, because.
Well, did you have relatives there or something?
Yeah, because the British were getting a lot of children out of the bombed cities.
Yeah.
And we were slated to go on a ship called the Burness. And at the last minute, my mother decided that no, she wouldn't send the two kids out. And if we're going to die, we die as a family. And the ship left Liverpool and got torpedoed.
Oh, wow.
And of the 90 children on board, only 13 survived.
See, there's another place where fate stepped in. It's absolutely amazing.
Right. My whole life is fate, up until I met my wife.
I think you're... Oh, no, wait a minute.
Then it was settled. There was no more fate after that.
Okay. You have to be careful how you say that, though. you got to say that was the best part of fate.
Well, I met her and married her in 3 months and 54 years ago.
And you're still there?
I'm still with her.
Okay. She hadn't thrown you out?
Well, we're still lovers, so that's good.
That's good. No, but
friends and lovers, that's it.
Well, that's even better.
That's better, yeah,
right. You threw me off here when you're... you're talking about the fact that... Well, when did you come to the States then?
What happened after that, then my mother convinced my father that we shouldn't go. That was fine. And then we got evacuated to a town called Flint.
Not Michigan.
No, not Michigan. That was in North Wales. And I remember we had tags on, just like luggage. And we got on the train and we got to Flint. And we got off the train and all the evacuees were standing in the town square.
I think we have a picture from that. I'm not sure. Let's look at the next picture and see. Well, keep talking though, and let's see, because I think that the next picture has something to do with when you're in Flint.
Yeah, and what happened is that what happened in Flint was that the people who were taking in the children as evacuees came down to the marketplace. I felt like a cattle being sold.
But it's like the old days of slavery.
Yeah, that's what it felt like. Yeah, and my brother and I got separated, and he went one way in the town, and I went the other. And the only time we saw him was on Sundays, because we had to go to church.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing about the church was that the first Sunday they said, "Jack, we're going to church." And I said, "Well, I don't go to church. I'm Jewish." And they said, well, they had never met a Jewish person before. And they said, well, you got to get dressed because you don't go to church. So I got dressed up and ended up at the church. And it was the first time that I ever been in a church.
Yeah.
It was the Church of England. And it was interesting because...
what about your brother? Was he there too?
Yeah, we met. Yeah, that's the only time I saw my brother was on Sundays.
Huh.
And and when I first saw him the first Sunday, I didn't recognize him because he was all dressed up. And I asked him, gee, I never saw you dressed up like that before. And he said, well, they had a boy that had died, and it was the same age as my brother.
Oh.
So they gave him all.
You got all the clothes.
Gave him all the clothes, yeah.
Oh.
So we were there for a while, and then Liverpool sort of calmed down, and then we went back home. And then bombing started up again. And then I got evacuated to St. Asaph, which was a town in Wales, North Wales again. And it was a Jewish boys' home.
Huh.
And there were 40 boys in the home. And for each 10 boys, there was one leader. And I'm being the oldest, I was 13 at that time, became the leader for the 10 boys. And there was a rabbi there called Dr. Gottlieb. And he says, are you bar mitzvahed? I said, no, I'm not bar mitzvahed. He said, well, you're going to be.
I was just going to ask you that.
I was going to be. Yeah. And I went through this ritual of being... schooling for bar mitzvah. Yeah. But the interesting thing about the whole thing is that he had a wife, and the rabbi had a wife, and on Friday afternoon everybody had to take a bath. And the reason why I take a bath is because it's Friday, and that was the time. But the trouble is they didn't have hot water; they only had cold water. But they had a big fireplace to heat the water. So my job was to go out to the well outside, get the buckets, fill up the bathtub. Now, you got to remember one thing. You had one bathtub, it was only filled once.
Right.
And the rabbi's wife had the first bath.
Okay.
And after that, everybody dunked in the bathtub to get a bath, right? So one day I decided to fool her. and I decided that I would do something not nice in the bathtub, which I did. I can't repeat it on television, but I did it. And I remember this day, I wonder if she ever knew what I had done to the bath water. But after that, we learned the lesson, and when it rained, we'd go outside and get washed.
Okay.
We wouldn't go in the bathtub. We pretend we did, but we didn't go to the bathtub.
Oh. That reminds me, when I was a kid, we had I was the youngest of 5, actually the youngest of 6, but one had died. And every Saturday we had the same ritual. Everybody was in the same bathtub, but it was only the 5 kids, bang, 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 bang.
And so I did become bar mitzvahed, and it turned out that many, many years later I would think about that, and he was a very remarkable person for what he really did. And at the time, of course, I thought he was a cruel man, but now I realize that he was a gentleman.
What about the other 10 boys? Did they get bar mitzvahed too, or
no?
They weren't the right age. They weren't the right age.
They were all younger. They were a lot younger children at that time. My brother was let's see, I was 13. My brother's 4 years younger, so he was 11.
Oh,
so he was 10.
So
16 minus 4
very good.
Is 12.
Yes. Okay. What you're in Liverpool. When did you get back to with your parents?
So what happened is that 1 year later, I hadn't seen my parents all that time. I went to Liverpool.
You didn't see it.
I didn't see my parents for a year.
Okay.
And decided I was brought up in a boys' home, and of course the townies never liked the Jewish kids, so there's always fighting going on.
Right.
And one day we decided that we'd have a one-on-one with the town leader. So me being the oldest and the tallest, I decided that it was decided that I would fight the townie leader.
Oh.
So we had a big to-do in the fight, and after that, the townies and the Jewish boys became friends.
Oh.
Nobody really won the fight, but
that's interesting though. You had to do something rather drastic to.
Well, it happened twice. It happened in Flint, and it happened in St. Asaph, where after a while you become friends.
Yeah. Of course.
And so he went back to Liverpool after the war was over, and I went to school, and I went to the City of Liverpool Technical College, and in 1946 my father was dying from his poisoning with the mustard gas, and said to me, "Whatever you do, go back to America. You're a citizen."
He died while you're still in
England. Yeah, he died in 46. So I got a job in the Merchant Marine. I got on a ship, and called the Sibley Park, and left Liverpool. And I was third cook. I was down in the galley peeling potatoes. And the ship went to Belfast, and we picked up Irish whiskey and empty shell cases, and came out into the North Sea, and then we went on the way to America. And it was a very stormy time that time, with very bad weather.
Well, there's bad weather a lot, isn't it?
Yeah, well, very bad weather. Yeah. And off in Nova Scotia, we hit a storm of 50-mile-an-hour, 50-foot waves and 80-mile-an-hour winds.
Oh.
And the ship went up in the air and to the list to starboard. And we limped into New York after that.
Yeah.
But I was trapped in a galley, and the galley filled full of water.
How many people were on the ship? Was it?
I don't know the passengers.
But it wasn't a very big ship.
Well, there weren't any passengers. It was just a freight boat.
I'm trying to compare it to when I was on a troop ship and in storms. If they're bigger, even though it's still hell, it isn't as bad.
And in my book, I have a picture of the ship sailed on.
We're almost through. As a matter of fact, we're almost through with this half hour, and there's still a couple of pictures left that I think we haven't seen of this first part of your personal journey. Let's see what they are, and then otherwise we'll just go on and then. But you're coming back. Even though here we are. Oh, this is you. And where are you?
That's me when I was 18, and that's my ship's papers.
Okay.
This is photograph.
This is on the ship you're on now.
Yeah. No, that was on a Sibley Park, leaving Liverpool in 1946, in the middle of in November, which is very bad weather in the North Atlantic.
Yeah. You managed to save your hair more than I did.
Well, who could afford a haircut?
What's
this picture here is actually the Korean War Memorial.
Oh, okay.
So what happened here was many years later, I was in the American Army and I was in Korea, and this is the memorial, and the fellow on the right is the position I used to take when we were on.
Are each one of them doing something different? In that picture, were they all different, or you say the one on the right?
No, the one on the right, they're statues.
Oh, those are statues.
Yeah, the one on the right,
okay.
it's the Korean War Memorial in Washington.
Gotcha. Okay, I thought those were people just standing there.
No, and my position was always the one on. It's a funny story. I took the grandchildren there to see the memorial, and they were fascinated by the story I was telling them, and showed them what I did in the Korean War.
Yeah. Oh,
that's going on non-manned patrols.
Well, that's a wonderful thing about grandchildren, because they're going to admire you more than your own kids, I think. It's so, and there's such a distance and also you're part of the history that they have to.
Yeah. Well, what happened is that I really had no intention of writing anything, and the North Community College, the Long Life Learners, had a course in memoir writing, which I took.
Yeah.
And from then on in comes the book.
Well, I think that particular, well, not just that course, but the whole situation over there with Lifetime Learners encourages us to make sure that our talents, our stories, our history is told in such a way. Because like when my parents, since I was the last of six, my older sisters knew more about my parents than I ever did, and now if I have any questions, there's nobody to ask, and no one wrote any memoirs. I have a nephew who's doing some, but of course he's about half a generation later than I am. So that I think that it's great that you've got it for them, that you've done this.
Well, writing a memoir is a strange thing, actually, because depends who's writing it. If my brother wrote it, he'd probably write it differently.
Oh yeah, it's Rashomon. You all see the same thing, but you see it very, very differently.
But the problem with it is that when you start involved in this, you start writing, it brings back memories you wish you didn't remember.
True.
That's one of the difficulties of writing it.
But yes, but it's also a thing then to see how you can put it down. But I'm sure you're able to.
No, as a person, I never really wrote much. I didn't even write letters, and I was amazed at my own ability to be able to write.
Okay. Well, as a matter of fact, we're going to come back next week, and we're going to tell you more about Jack and his life. And I think that this is fascinating. And as I mentioned to you, the half hour goes by very fast. Yes. But you'll be back next week. So thank you for being here.
Thank you very much.
It's
been a pleasure.
Thank you for your life. Okay.
I still got many years to go.
Well,